What's up, Keto Nation? This is Keto Queen City. We are committed to changing the world one carb at a time. Thank you for joining me today. So we're getting ready to start our 13-day keto transformation challenge on June 13th. Just wanted to do a series of a couple of videos to kind of get you guys interested in thinking about what's going on with your body if you're having issues. And the one thing I want to talk about today real quickly is metabolic syndrome. So I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but so what is metabolic syndrome? Metabolic syndrome is a cluster of conditions which we're going to talk about, which increases your risk for heart attack, stroke, and type 2 diabetes. Well, diabetes, but type 2 mainly. So how do you know if you might have metabolic syndrome? You can suspect it. Number one is if you're obese, but not even necessarily obese, but if you have a lot of fat storage or you're very thick around your middle, you may not have, there's white fat and brown fat. White fat is the unsightly fat that's more of like an insulation. It's the stuff that we hate, but it's actually not even as dangerous as brown fat, although brown fat is metabolically active. Too much, so it is necessary to insulate and protect your organs, but too much brown fat is what's known as visceral fat. And that you can actually be relatively thin, or you may not look real obese, but you may have a lot of visceral fat. So that's what's called skinny on the outside, but fat on the inside, which is another video we're gonna talk about. But so that's one indication. The second would be if you had tests done where your cholesterol is high, but specifically your HDL, your bad cholesterol. That would be number two. If you have high blood pressure, that's the third one. The biggest one, I think, is going to be high blood sugar, indicating you might be insulin resistant. Insulin, when you're constantly spiking your insulin and taking in high glycemic foods or carbohydrates or carbohydrate garbage, as I call them, not vegetable carbohydrates, but high glycemic sugars, processed foods, and just starches, you're constantly screaming at your body with this spiking your blood sugar. Eventually your insulin doesn't function properly. And then the fifth one is inflammation. Inflammation is the body's way of repairing itself. And it's, so if you injure your knee or any part of your body, it becomes inflamed. And that's a natural process because that's the body's way of saying we're taking energy and blood and sending it to this area to heal something that is being attacked, essentially. So when you have inflammation, systemic inflammation in your body, chronic inflammation, that's when your body's constantly inflamed, and it's inflamed as a result of you're injuring your body over and over with inflammatory foods and foods that aren't good for you. So those are the five big ones. Metabolic syndrome, mainly the two main components that kind of get distorted when you have metabolic syndrome are the two hormones called insulin and leptin. I'm sure you've heard of insulin. Leptin is one not a lot of people are maybe as familiar with. So let's talk about what they are. So insulin is produced in your pancreas, and it regulates your blood sugar, but it also triggers storage, energy storage, i.e. fat storage. So insulin triggers fat storage. It's a fat storage hormone. And again, it's necessary in the body, and God designed us that way so that in those times that, you may have to go days or even weeks without food, your body is able to store these extra calories to use for energy later. Problem is, none of us typically, hopefully, or most of us aren't starving these days. So we're storing this fat, but we're not ever really burning it off or using it. So anyway, insulin's a fat storage hormone. You cannot burn fat in the presence of food and insulin. All food to some degree spikes your insulin, although protein and carbohydrates are going to spike it more. Obviously, high glycemic carbohydrates spike it the most. Fat typically doesn't have much of an effect. It has a little bit of an effect on insulin, but not much. So fat. So remember, that's why when you're eating all the time, and when we go through this challenge, we're going to talk about time-restricted eating. I'm not going to get you guys 100% into what's called intermittent fasting right away. The term probably scares people away. It's really time-restricted eating. But, that's when you're eating all the time, even if it's healthy food, you're constantly, spiking that insulin, your body just never really has a chance to reset itself. So we're gonna try to regulate that. Now, the second hormone we're talking about is leptin. So leptin is actually created by your adipose tissue. Adipose tissue is fat and fat cells, but it regulates your energy and metabolism. It's almost the opposite of insulin. So and they're both good, but you can become insulin resistant, insulin sensitive. Insulin sensitivity is actually good. You can become leptin sensitive and leptin resistant. Leptin resistance, so because leptin regulates your energy and metabolism, it inhibits hunger and diminishes fat storage, right? So in, these days and age, that's a good thing. But it's the hunger hormone. So when you're hungry all the time, you're leptin resistant. You can be leptin resistant. So these two, like I said, these two work together. And so the good news is that you can fix this, and you can fix it by not just the ketogenic diet, but that I think the ketogenic diet is the purest way, purest form of fixing it. But if you have one of those, you don't have to have all 5 of those symptoms, but kind of just take a self-assessment, think about it. We are really going to go into this 13-day challenge. We're going to reset your hormones. We're going to reset your gut microbiome. We're going to eat very uninflammatory foods. You guys are going to really feel amazing. Like I said, don't worry about the keto flu. I'm going to help you through that. There's going to be some noticeable changes in the way you feel the first couple of days, but after you truly get into ketosis and you're starting to realize that just how great it feels, I think you won't ever go back to eating the other way. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Remember, hope, love, peace, and transformation to the willing. We'll see you in the next video.